And greetings, happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show. We are live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. My name is Steve Deace. His name is Todds, and his name is Aaron McIntyre. We have a fourth member here with us for the first hour, and his name is comedian Tim Young. He'll be joining us here for the Deace Group Roundtable in just a moment. Let us know what you think, though, about what we think, and it is a Feedback Friday, so we'll be getting to some of your feedback coming up in the next hour of the show. Feedback that you can still email to us at steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. You can also look for us on Facebook, MeWe, Parler, and Gab. Just look for my name there. Follow me on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. And if you're looking for the uncensored, unfiltered clips for free that you can sample on this show and then hopefully share with others, subscribe to our Rumble channel at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. That's rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. More and more stories coming out as we speak about parents fighting back against the curriculum going on in their schools. I'm just joyous to see it. It's years and years overdue, but we can't undo what we didn't do before, right? But we can do something about it right now. Now, you may end up finding out, though, that eventually that the numbers just aren't there, or the stronghold you're up against in that school district is just too difficult. But what do you do with your kid? I don't want to subject them to this. Now that I'm fully aware of what is going on, I don't want to subject my child to this. If we can't be heard, if there's not enough parents out there like me, are there options? Well, the answer, thankfully, is yes. And it's my friends over at Freedom Project Academy. I can't give them a better endorsement other than I know Dr. Duke Pesta personally, who helped to found this school and oversee it now. I've seen personally firsthand what it did with my own son. Noah was involved and enrolled in FPA for a couple of years too. So I can't give a better endorsement other than I know the guy who helped found the school, and I let him teach my own kid. All right. If you want to find out what it looks like when your kid is taught on a classical curriculum based on Judeo-Christian values, not leftist propaganda, mastery of subject matter, critical thinking, you know, the way that the founding fathers and the generations that made this an exceptional country, the way they were taught. If you want to know what that looks like when that comes into your home, get a free packet today at freedomforschool.com. Again, that is freedomforschool.com. And now it is time for the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with Bleep, Lord Nefarious Says.
Is there a target for herd immunity for COVID vaccines? Is it 75%, 80%? What is that goal for the administration right now?
Well, Dr. Fauci has addressed this a number of times and has conveyed that herd immunity is kind of an outdated term.
You've got to ask, what is the problem? Get over it. Get over this political statement. Just get over it and try and save the lives of yourself and your family.
One, targeted community by community, door-to-door outreach to get remaining Americans vaccinated.
Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door-to-door, literally knocking on doors.
But our work doesn't stop there, and we are going to continue to press to get 12 to 18-year-olds vaccinated.
We know how to deal with an epidemic. What we want to say is, we want to do with gun violence what we just did with COVID.
Are you proud to be an American?
No, not really in this climate. No, like, I'm a black person. You know, there's like oppression that comes with that.
I think most of the time, no, at least over like the past 4 years.
Not most of the time. I think sometimes it's just a little embarrassing.
No. What is there to be proud about if you're black and being like, you know, because it's just like it's still a lot of stuff that goes on for black people.
We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. Your children will care about fairness and justice for others. Your children will work to convert all their sisters and brothers. Then soon we're almost certain your kids will start converting you.
I hear a lot of gay men saying to me, well, I like men. I think that trans men are handsome, but I could never ever sleep with one of them. Well, thank you for telling everyone you're very boring. Also, like, this is just transphobia. Like, I don't think any of you know what that word means.
We wanted to ask, can you be transracial, and how is that different from being transgender? There is this white British man who recently got facial surgery to look more Asian because he identifies as being Korean. We wanted to ask people, is he Korean now?
He is not biologically Korean.
I don't think that changes anything about him necessarily.
I don't think that's an identity. You can't identify as an ethnicity. Okay, so you can't be transracial.
Well, perhaps you can, but that's not how I think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you be transgender?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Probably no difference.
If it's about what you identify as, can't you identify as whatever you want to identify with?
No, you can't be transracial because that's cultural appropriation.
What about what they've done to Jack Ma? He's kind of disappeared as...
Well, yes, but Jack Ma's one of the swingers. So they just they said, the hell with you. He basically gave a speech when he said to a one-party state, well, you guys are a bunch of jerks, don't know what you're doing, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it better. And he was going to wade into banking and no rules and just do whatever he pleased.
He also brought banking to a lot of
the
unbanked
Chinese
people.
communists did the right thing. They just called in Jack Ma and say, you aren't going to do it, Sonny. And I wish we had I don't want all of the Chinese system, but I certainly would like to have the financial part of it in my own country.
That's one of Warren Buffett's chief business partners sitting with him there, openly saying, I wish we were more like China. So let's get to it. What was the best of the worst this week? And as the guest, per tradition around here, Mr. Tim Young, you get to go first. Go ahead.
Dude, what a loaded week of clips that was. I mean, I don't even know where to start, where to pick. But honestly, my favorite of the whole thing was the trans person saying that you're transphobic if you don't have sex with him or her or whatever they identify as. Because I always wanted a complex excuse for why women don't sleep with me, and that person gave it to me. It's hate speech. If women don't sleep with me, it's hate speech, Steve, and I'm here to say that today. I'm taking a stand. I've got a list. Scarlett Johansson, Nicole Kidman. Who's the one I really like that would read me the phone book? The British gal that's in A Quiet Place. What's her name? I forget her name. Okay. Emily Blunt.
What's that?
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt, thank you. Yes, I would just preemptively right now, anticipating the answer would be no. I just want to preemptively call each of them transphobic. Is that the new play, right? You just say this to every chick at a bar, every chick online. If you won't hook up with me, that's just an evidence of the fact that you're transphobic or Tim-phobic. It couldn't be I'm repulsive. It's just there must be something wrong with you, correct?
Listen, if there are 20-year-olds, like another one of the clips that you had there, 20-year-old black women walking around Georgetown that just went shopping in one of the most expensive places in the world, basically, saying that they're suppressed or oppressed or whatever you want to call it, you can convince them that they're transphobic if they don't sleep with you.
Well said. Todd.
You're going to have to let me drink on this show. It's coming to that. I need to take the edge off.
Well, it's not on the rundown today, but Patriot Wine is one of our sponsors. Might just have to have a bottle standing by, right?
I was lit from the beginning, so let me just go there. It could have been any number of things, but let me remind you that before we had ever heard of this thing called COVID, I'm the anti-vaxxer on the show, and I know I've said before out loud to all of you that the number one defense just 2 years ago of the vaccine crowd, or the number one lament, the number one accusation against me, is that I didn't believe in herd immunity. That was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's an outdated term. I was an animal. I wanted to kill everybody. A doctor actually told me, I don't think his kids are vaccinated. I don't think I'd let you sit next to my kids. I said, but doctor, your kids are vaccinated. Herd immunity. Now it's outdated. That happened pretty fast, folks. And if you keep buying nonsense like that, and again, the CDC coming out today saying kids unvaccinated still need to wear masks. We're just making stuff up now in the name of science. We're dealing at a cult within the realm of science that is every bit as robust as what you saw from the Gay Men's Chorus. And if you don't think so, you're a damn fool.
It's the same end result. It's the center to deceive and control.
Yes.
This is just about control. The same thing that was sung in that Gay Men's Chorus song, which is literally, they're claiming even more so today now, this was a joke and a troll. But again, as I said yesterday, go get the book. It's out of print. It cost hundreds of dollars. But there was a famous book in the late 80s written called After the Ball. It is the Mein Kampf of the Rainbow Jihad. It lays out their entire plan for conquistadoring. That's what it is, for cultural conquistadoring, and their lyrics are right out of this book if you've read it. Okay, which I did when I first started doing this for a living. And so one of the things you'll find fascinating is all these various strains have the same end game in mind: power and control. Power and control. That's really what it's all about. And that's what CDC's guidelines are about. They cite no science whatsoever. I can come up with a reason why. Could you come up with a reason why they can't cite any science on this masking?
There's no science.
Because there isn't any science on the masking. That's why they don't have any. It doesn't exist. In fact, as I pointed out this morning on Twitter, yesterday Japan declared a state of emergency. The Tokyo Olympics will now be going on without any spectators. This is a country, Wired, the New York Times, Washington Post, that controlled opposition over at National Review. Should I go on? The Philadelphia Inquirer. I could have put a lot more media outlets, by the way. Dozens of all kinds of media outlets globally told us for the last year and a half Japan had conquered COVID with masks, and yet here we are, a far more obese country. They're the least obese country in all of the industrialized world. We're a far more obese country. Yesterday, we had 260 total deaths. So that's another lie. When you keep being told, well, 90% of the people dying now are dying without being vaccinated. Now, I'll take into account that number's true. I'm sure it's a lie because they lie about everything else. But I'll even grant the point to make mine. I'll grant theirs. What is a bigger risk for you? If 200 some people are now, we haven't been over 1,000 deaths in a day in this country since April the 15th. 3 months almost. What is a bigger risk for you right now? And unless you're in an extreme health profile, what is the bigger risk for you? Looking at a ratio of about 250 deaths a day is what we're doing right now. Dying of COVID, or with COVID, because we still haven't changed those guidelines yet either, right? Okay. Dying with COVID, when we're averaging 200 some odd deaths per day, dying with COVID in a nation of 330 million people with that death ratio, dude, that's called a weekend in Chicago walking down the street, all right? 200 some odd deaths per day. This is what they don't tell you. Let's just say it is 90 some odd percent. 200 some odd deaths per day out of 330 million people, or the adverse effects of these untested, unproven therapeutics that aren't even vaccines. Which is the higher risk? I don't think it's even questionable unless you're an extreme health profile, autoimmune, morbidly obese, and over 70. If you're not in those profiles, there's no questions it's the vaccines. But they don't ever tell you that. They don't ever provide that context because they lie. Like they've lied about all of this from the very beginning. They're lying now. They were lying then. They're lying now. We knew they were lying then. We know they're lying now, and yet they keep lying anyway. Aaron.
I've got to go with that comment from Jen Psaki. Well, herd immunity, it's an outdated term. I know this is Todd's favorite of the week as well. Yeah, the only real, I don't know how to call them, the only real terms I think that matters to people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and others are terms like PFE and mRNA, which are the New York Stock Exchange codes for Pfizer and Moderna at this point. I think that's the only immunity that really matters to those types of people is the ones bestowed upon vaccine manufacturers in 1986 with the Childhood Vaccine Injury Act or whatever that was called. This is thoroughly and utterly ridiculous for all the reasons that Todd just articulated, because herd immunity, that's how naturally, now vaccines have helped in some instances, but naturally that's how human beings, that's how our immune systems were designed to be able to fight off these viruses for eons, for millennia. And now all of a sudden, it's an outdated term. It's like so many other things in the montage. So many other things that we talk about. All of a sudden, a man can be a woman. All of a sudden, the definition of marriage is changed. It's like It's like there's a pattern here of smashing stained glass windows on everything. It's the same pattern on everything. And if you're not woke, if I might say that, if you're not woke to that fact yet, you're living in a different reality.
Well said, brother. Exit question on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being as weak and useless as Lindsey Graham's verified Tinder account, and 10 being as robust and vibrant as Lindsey Graham's burner Grindr account. Rate this week's level of total depravity. Todd?
10.
Tim?
10.
Aaron?
10.
Yeah, it's a strong 10. Strong 10. Let's continue on the total depravity beat, shall we? Let's go to issue 2. The data shows Democrats are quite literally possessed by the spirit of the age.
In the day-to-day milieu of transgenderism, fake science, and everything is racist, it can be easy to lose sight of just where the culture was, is, and where it's heading. Perhaps nowhere has this been more succinctly illustrated than this graphic from the Pew Research Center, which shows the median political attitudes of the two major parties on hot-button cultural issues on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being consistently liberal and 10 being consistently conservative. Pew found in 1994 the Democrat Party was at a 5, right down the middle, while the Republican Party was at a 6, leaning slightly to the right. 23 years later, in 2017, Pew found the Democrat Party at a 2, 30% more liberal, while the Republican Party is at about a 6.5, about 5% more conservative. Pew found in roughly the middle of this time span, 2004, the Republican Party was slightly more liberal than it was in 1994, while the Democrat Party was significantly more liberal by about 10%. As political blogger Kevin Drum summed up this week, if you hate the culture wars, blame liberals.
Todd, I'll begin with you. What's the driving force here that has, in the last 2 decades, driven the Democrat Party so far to the left, which is quantified? The data is quantified by this research, but what's the cause? What's the catalyst here?
It's godlessness. And all of the parts of the Old Testament that were perhaps the hardest to understand in this relative land of milk and honey called America that we live in, you couldn't embrace. How is it so decadent that the only choice is destruction? I get it now. I say that without apology, speaking only for myself. The wanted tyranny that is called freedom. That's where we're living in right now. To utterly control the lives of all others so that I can feel okay with whatever I feel. That's where we live now. And in Old Testament times, that was a yo moment for people. We don't have that yo moment right now. We have utterly cast God aside. We've been doing it for a long time, far more within our churches even, turning them into something other than a church. So, listen, we can't mess around with this. This is flat-out Old Testament stuff.
So if it's flat-out Old Testament stuff, then in those days, Israel had no king, so everyone was wise in their own eyes. Yes. Everyone did what he or she saw fit, right? Yes. That goes to what Aaron was saying last segment. Outdated terms, chromosomes, data, truth, yes. Constitution, laws, legalities, citizen, border, crime. These things are all, herd immunity. These things are all outdated terms now.
Yes.
Breathing's an outdated term now.
And by the way, the understanding of those terms were not just built in a moment in time. We stood on the shoulder of giants, eons after eon, gen after building that.
Right.
And now we're just like, no, we're the people we've been waiting for.
That's what's fascinating about the fact that we just had Independence Day weekend.
Yes.
Commemorating the ratification of the Declaration of Independence. And what does Thomas Jefferson do? Considered for his period, one of the more, shall we call him, progressive members
yes.
of those founding fathers. And yet, in order to chart the course for the future, where does he go?
The past.
The past. These are self-evident truths. They've been observed throughout history. And ultimately, we have no chances of success unless God blesses the effort. I mean, there are numerous references in order for why they're staking their claim on their freedom to historical and philosophical and scriptural precedent, right?
Yes.
He goes to the past, things that are verifiable, that have been shown to be true in order to chart the course for the future. We are now, today in our culture, the spirit of the age says we can only achieve the future you want by scrubbing and eliminating everything from the past. And so here we are.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Aaron.
Yeah, that was a tour de force right there in about 2 minutes, Steve. What explains this? I think if you're looking for an event, or maybe it's a lack of event, it would be the maybe 3 or 4 weeks after 9/11. Because I remember, I was 8 years old when that happened. Even I remember in small town Iowa, the churches, or the church was a little bit, the size was a little bit swollen. It was built up over a few weeks, and then it just kind of went back to normal. And I think that trend, we've talked about it seemed like everybody was unified. Everybody kind of that was maybe the last time the United States was about as unified as it could get, or as unified as a country can get. Because I think in a lot of ways that was a wake-up call to us, to this generation and the next generation of the world that they're living in, and kind of I don't want to say fantasy land, but the extremely blessed nature of where we are and how we got there and what this is about. And I think that was forgotten all too soon. And then, of course, we embarked upon 20 years of endless war in the Middle East, which hopefully for the 9th time is coming to an end, at least in Afghanistan. So if you want to look at a cause, if we're going to look at this through a spiritual lens, which I think we should, if you want to look at a cause, I would say maybe the sweeping under the rug of something like a 9/11. You know, there were positive aspects to that, especially in light of COVID, where, you know what, we got back to living life as we would. We got back to living and doing the things that made life worth living, but at the same time, at a metaphysical level, at a transcendent level, I think it was going back to the normal that was not going to work out in the long run, and I think that's probably the cause.
So, Tim, I think we're probably about 10 minutes away from Bill Maher and Dave Rubin hosting a show together. Okay, I mean, this is now they've gone so nuts that the atheist lefty on HBO is now getting he's Gran Torino guy on MSNBC now for daring to have even to claim even still a modicum of some common sense about how the world actually operates and not just magically project your thinking upon it. What's happened here in the last couple of generations where one major political party in America has decided to become an open vehicle for undoing the first things that define any form of a civilized society?
So first of all, I said this the last time I come on. I really love how deep this gets. I'm a comic. It's tough for me to deal when you guys are getting into the biblical stuff. It's scary. Look, it's the internet. It's the internet and it's idiots. This started in 1994. If you take a look at that first chart, the internet was not around. And I studied internet law. It was one of the courses I took in law school. I'm smarter than I look. My professor in internet law said, look, the thing that the internet does is it brings all the creeps together. They can find the other creeps and they can gather and they realize they're not alone. So if you collect severed baby doll heads, you can find a club that collects severed baby doll heads. That's what's happened between 1994 and now. On top of that, you add in social media. So all the freaks have gotten together and they're very loud and they've been empowered by the internet and social media and they get their likes and whatever else. And the Democrats are so stupid that they've listened to them and they've gotten into that same echo chamber because these people identified as liberal. So they've taken the Democratic Party that was more in the middle and pushed it over to the side. And those people are getting more and more clout in Hollywood and everything else. If it wasn't for the internet, if it wasn't for social media and rewarding the freakiest people for being victims, we wouldn't be here.
Tim, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? 40. So you, me, and Todd are all in the same generation then, all right? Mm-hmm. You guys will remember when Bill Clinton sister soldiered Jesse Jackson. You guys remember that? Okay. Mm-hmm. And Bill Clinton had run what was called the Democrat Leadership Council in the mid to late 1980s. The party had gone too far left coming out of the 60s and the counterculture, which was ironic coming from the guy that actually dodged the draft and once gave a speech, I believe, in Moscow. Okay. But hey, it was Bill Clinton and you did get in the way of his ambitions. So he goes from protest culture, all right, to I'm now going to run the DLC and try to bring the Democratic Party back to sanity. And that's where Al Gore, who was the last official major, I believe, pro-life Democrat presidential candidate in 1984. He was pro-life back then. That's why he put him on the ticket, was to send a signal right away. Hey, we're two Southern guys. This ain't, the Michael Dukakis party anymore. The last time a major pro-life speaker was invited at a Democratic convention was that year by Bill Clinton's invite. He invited Bill Casey, the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, who was the last time we had a substantive challenge to Roe v. Wade at the U.S. Supreme Court. Was his law, okay? And so we get into the mid-1994, Aaron, you point that era out.
Yep.
This is now we're going to go into the contract with America. Bill Clinton, after getting his rear end kicked, opens his State of the Union speech in 1995 with the era of big government is over. After he wins the nomination in 1992, he invites Sister Souljah from Public Enemy, the rap group, to do a speaking engagement, and then he just throws her and Zeshy Jackson completely under the race-baiting bus and says, we don't do that as a party here anymore. I mean, all these things. He signed the Defense of Marriage Act. He signed the Welfare Reform Bill, the 3 strikes and you're out law, the crime bill. Hell, we got Republicans like Trump now calling the crime bill racist, and Bill Clinton was signing that into law. I mean, go back and listen to the stuff Rush Limbaugh, if you could find the archives, was railing against with the Democratic Party in 93, 94, 95, 96, when the three of us were all cutting our teeth on politics and all listening to Rush every single day. And we're like, wow, these people are nuts, right? And then compare it to where we are now, guys. It's like to use that term, transdimensional. This is an incredible turn of events. Any quick thoughts on that before the exit question?
Well, I think that is because, and you're inspired by what Tim had to say. I absolutely agree. I do think it's fundamentally godlessness. But then what variables enter into play? I think what Tim has talked about where that godlessness is concentrated itself. That's where that was what the internet was, the release the Kraken of that.
Yeah, that's the release. That's the pressure valve.
Yes.
I think Tim has put a physical manifestation on the metaphysical points you were making.
Yep.
That this has brought all this stuff now mainstream.
And it's a similar point to what David Bowie, of all people, made back in 1999, if you remember
so
that.
So could Bill Clinton today, Sister Souljah, when she showed up with 2.5 million Twitter followers and 1.5 million on her Instagram, and she was going to be on Joy Reid right afterwards,
he would have been the one getting Sister Souljah.
Well,
yes.
Mm-hmm. This is basically the end of the latest Wonder Woman movie. Remember the Lord guy? Yeah. He needed the venue so every individual he wouldn't have to touch, and then he found the space age satellite. That's what the internet did. That's what Tim is talking about. It unleashed hell.
It brought the red light district intellectually and morally and philosophically into the mainstream of America. Yeah. All right, let's get to the exit question. True or false? The modern Democrat Party has ironically proven white people really are responsible for what is wrong with much of America, since it's the affluent, white, spirit of the age progressives in its own party that have actually originated virtually every bad idea that is infecting America today.
True.
Tim.
True, absolutely.
Aaron.
Undeniably.
We got only a minute here. We could do like a whole show on this question, but I've at least got to throw it out there, and then it can be pondered and people can think about it, during the break or after we get off the air within the audience. If all the dots we just connected are accurate, and I think if they're not fully accurate, they're at least on the map somewhere, okay? Could you apply, in a natural sense, enough political pressure on them then to move them back into the mainstream? Is that possible? If you think it's possible, Tim, you do.
Yes, absolutely. The thing is, and I keep screaming this, there's at least 80 million Trump supporters out there. There are 80 million of us out there. We just have to work together.
What do you think, Todd?
I increasingly doubt things that Tim just said, although I want to believe them. I think the horse has left the barn on some level.
I kind of tend to think we can't, but I'd at least want to test Tim's theory first.
Yes, first.
Because we've never really tried it. Okay, but I'd like to at least test it first before I just, say, oh boy,
I know.
Abandon hope, all ye who enter.
I know.
We'll come back, more of the roundtable here in a moment. Internet service providers, Comcast, Verizon, et cetera, they know every single website that you visit. ISPs can then sell this information to ad companies and tech giants when they who then use your data to target you. In the past, when I had my own website before I hooked up here with Blaze Media, I'd get emails from guys who are like, hey man, what's with like all the porn ads on your site? I'm like, dude, it's not porn ads. Those are Google ads, and they are, they go with your viewing habits. in order to run ads they think you'll be the most attracted to.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. That's like Carl Lewis trying to sing the national anthem, right, Todd?
Yes, it is.
Uh-oh. Okay. So if you want to keep your private information private, you need to take a look at a VPN, and the best out there. And it's the one that I use is ExpressVPN, rated #1 by CNET, Wired, The Verge, and more. It works on phones, laptops, even your routers. So everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can also be protected. It's easy to hook up. I've got it on my laptop here, on my phone here, on the set as well. It's an install with a click, and you are good to go. You can secure your online activity now by visiting ExpressVPN, V as in victory, expressvpn.com/Steve today, and you can get 3 extra months when you sign up, 3 free months when you sign up with their 1-year package. When you go to expressvpn.com/Steve, again, that's expressvpn.com/Steve. Let's continue on with our weekly look at the week that was here on the Deace Group. We're joined this week by our colleague here at Blaze Media, comedian Tim Young. Let's get to issue 3, the UFO Report.
Here is another UFO bulletin.
Near the end of June, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence finally released its much ballyhooed report on UFOs, or the government-termed unidentified aerial phenomenon. The report was a whopping 9 pages long and indicated the government is aware of 144 reports of UAPs from government sources, with 80 of those reports involving observation with multiple sensors, meaning radar, visual contact, etc. The report also states that some of the sightings of UAPs demonstrate advanced technology. Quote, some UAP appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. In small number of cases, military aircraft system processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. The report says the sightings likely fall into one of 5 categories: airborne clutter, natural phenomena, government or industrial development programs, foreign adversaries, or other.
Now, the report and the people that have been responsible for it have been pretty adamant they don't believe it's foreign adversary technology. What I also find, so for those, and I will admit, after having read it, when I read it myself and being kind of underwhelmed, and then I went online and watched like 3 clips of Tucker Carlson talking about it at different times on his show since it came out, because him and I usually share a brain. It's just his share of that share is bigger. I was surprised at how much more he thought it revealed than I did. I actually thought it was a letdown when I read it myself. He actually seemed to think that it was much more of a table setter than I did. But what I also find interesting, though, is I didn't think it was a very compelling case for more funding, because it also says they think that's the least likely thing, is that this is foreign adversary technology. If this was about funding, you would think they would be pumping that angle up all the more. I also found it interesting that given all the hype for this report heading into it, there's been almost no hype now in the 2 weeks since it came out. So, Aaron, we'll start with you. If you had to pick a word or a phrase that best describes your reaction to this 9-page, much ballyhooed, as you pointed out, UFO report released by the Pentagon recently, what would it be?
It's not really a word. It's more of an exclamation, I guess. Because I'm kind of with you. I'm split down the middle, but I'm mostly with you, where it was kind of a disappointment, I should say. Now, having said that, I don't know really quite what I was expecting, though, because we're talking about unidentified aerial phenomena or unidentified flying objects. The operative word being unidentified. How much are we really actually going to be able to know about the unidentified nature of something that's unidentified, because it's unidentified? So I'm not really sure how much we could unidentifiable fallacy. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not really sure how much we could have expected from this, but it is further confirmation. I guess maybe something that was a little bit of a disappointment were more specifics. They did give a few kind of general criteria for some of the sightings, which I pointed out there, appeared to be advanced technology, not moving around in winds aloft. That's a big deal, because winds aloft are very windy. It's very windy up in the atmosphere. That's interesting, but it wasn't really any specifics, no specific dates, nothing like that. So overall, it was a bit of a disappointment, but then again, I'm not really sure what we should have expected.
As a burgeoning pilot, can you narrow down for our audience what these claims mean? Are they basically saying these objects violate what we understand as the natural laws of aeronautics? Is that what they're basically saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'm coming to you last, man, because you're going to pee on all our parades. So let's go to Tim next, because I don't know what he's going to say. Go ahead, Tim.
So I had the same idea. My reaction was meh. And I take a look at this and I go, okay, if you would have told me there's 144 sightings, I could BS 9 pages like this too. I mean, the section that's like, this could pose a problem for, air traffic. Yeah, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all very common sense stuff. And whoever got paid the money to write this hunk of junk and how much money we threw into it totally wasn't worth it. I was more shocked by when I believe it was the Area 51 documents from the Navy that came out like about a decade ago, a little bit over a decade ago. And they actually showed that we had experimented with flying saucers, and they showed the schematics of a flying saucer that we had tried to play around with. That was more impressive to me than anything that came out in this. Like I said, I could have wrote this, give me about a half hour or so. I could have given you a framework for this entire 9-page document with no knowledge whatsoever.
Well, I guess he just set the table for you there, Ebenezer Scrooge. So go ahead, Todd.
Well, told you. This is more of the same. Listen, that video you had us watch, Steve, which was well done and fascinating. I don't remember which one, but there were
it's the documentary with former Bush and Obama era officials.
There were small communities in New Zealand. That's where they met the aliens and they landed. This has happened to us before. This is not suddenly we have all this new stuff that we've never had before. We've had versions of the old stuff, and we just talked about this a couple months ago. Steve, you put out a poll. I mean, this is basically, I think, more likely than anything else, if we apply Occam's razor, it's a psyop on us. We are being studied by our own government. And why should we not believe that based on everything else we talk about what our government is lying to us about on this show? So that's A, told you. B, I'm disappointed. I want to be wrong at this point because based on what our own people are doing to us, I'd like to hear the alien sales pitch at this point.
You're looking
what
for
do
a
you got
plan
for
B.
me? Because the gay man's chorus says they're coming for my children. Do you have a better offer on the table?
Anybody want to comment on that?
I can't.
Tim, do you want to comment on what Todd just said?
Both involve anal probes.
And I'm wishing Aaron would have commented instead. Yes. Note to self, don't go to the comedian last.
Wrap this up for us, Tim.
Yes.
Anal probes.
Yes.
You're welcome.
So what was... Let's go to the exit question now and have a conversation about it for a couple minutes. So the exit question is all this UFO momentum, is it gone now? Or is something else going to emerge to get it going again? How would you answer that question? And if you think it's gone now, what was the last year plus of this then, in your opinion, about? Okay. So Aaron, I'm going to start with you.
I don't think it's gone because I think the last year plus of this has been about something else. Now, I'm not diminishing necessarily the veracity of the proposition that extraterrestrial life or something along the lines of technology that we've never seen defying the laws of physics things. I'm not dismissing that. I just find it really odd that out of all of the sudden, alien sightings, like true alien sightings, that's always been reserved to Cousin Eddie in the trailer park, who claims he got anally probed last night from visitors from Epsilon 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's always been kind of
Vanity Fair
sequestered
features. Yeah.
inside of this really pigeonholed group of people. Now the government is like, yeah, we don't know, why? I find that very, very suspicious. So I don't know to what end this is going on. I just, especially after the last year and a half, I don't trust this whatsoever. It could be that they're telling the truth, the absolute truth, that there are 144 sightings. We have no idea what any of them are. Since 2004, I should say. Yep. We don't know what any of them are, and we're all on the up and up here. We're just letting you guys know. I doubt that. And that's just me, though.
Okay. So, Tim, is the UFO momentum gone now? And if it is, then what was the last year plus of it about, do you think?
It'll be around as long as Biden keeps screwing up. This is a distraction. This is all this is. That's why Obama came out to talk about it. You're telling me the president of the United States, former president of the United States, who knew about this stuff happening when he was president, couldn't come out then and say something, but he just so conveniently comes out now when there was a border crisis that Joe Biden had lost complete control over. This is going to happen again because Biden is a complete screw up, and this is cover for it.
I actually have what I think is a fairly charming and innocent answer. It's always, the momentum's not gone. This is always going to be around because when things happen that are difficult to explain throughout all of human history, and I think there is a there behind the experiment the government is conducting on us, but volcanoes erupting, stars, how they're shifting, and ancient peoples, you know, they tried to figure this thing out and they got it gloriously wrong oftentimes, but they tried. And I think this is, you know, there's a lot of people who are fascinated by the unknown and just trying to solve the riddle. And that's pretty charming and a noble human thing. So I don't think it's going anywhere.
Look at you.
Well,
look at you. Look at you opening
Mr.
Santa
Blue
letters from the
Skies.
North Pole there at the end. How about them apples?
I'm not without hope. Not totally.
Aaron, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Yes, thank you. Are we just going to go right to issue 4 here?
Yeah, let's go right.
All right, so issue 4 is our kicker issue. Tim, we'll start with you. And your response to the Branch Covidian cultist this week, the Biden regime said it may send cultists door to door to advocate for experimental COVID injections. I'm thinking this time we should go to you first. How would you respond when the Branch Covidian comes to your door for the jab?
Do you want me to point to my hat, or do you want me to point to my arm? It's no, and it's no, and it's very easy. I don't get angry that often. I think I'd get furious at these people and probably start lecturing them on what fascism is and where they are as brown shirts.
I love the no and no. I like it. Todd.
Yeah.
There's so many good and acceptable answers to this. Do I choose rage? Do I choose utter silence? Just standing there and letting them talk and indict themselves and then let them... Man, this is a Kobayashi for Maru for me.
It's for me too, because it probably kind of depends on the day I'm having how I will respond.
Yes,
because
exactly.
I think because I'm totally okay with a menagerie of responses actually, inviting them in as I've done Jehovah's Witnesses at time, and then just tearing them apart intellectually, listening to them do their spiel, and then just close the door, just completely ignoring them and moving around while they're talking and acting like they're not there. I mean, on any particular, depending on what's going on with me that day, I could take any of those reactions. Frankly.
I ask them, just answer me one question: are you coming for my children? Make them answer yes or no. Are you coming for my children? Other than that, we have nothing to talk about.
Aaron?
To me, this is...
What if it's...
Go ahead, Tim.
What if it's 30... What if it's the entire gay men's chorus and they come and sing They're Coming for Your Children? When they try to
If the gay men's chorus comes to my house and talk singing about jabs, that conversation can be in a totally different Lindsey Graham-esque context. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, I don't think there's any question. I would berate them with a long diatribe of things that I can't say on the air right now, and I would probably drive them away from my doorstep with a whip if I had one. I've always wanted to do that, and I think this sounds like a pretty good opportunity to do so. Listen, guys, just quickly. It's one thing if you're going to a business, you're going proactively going to a business. Somebody who's making $9 an hour, politely or impolitely tells you to put a mask on. Okay, I can understand having a little bit of compassion to that. Mm-hmm. When you're coming to my doorstep, I would have a hard time.
Operation Tar and Feather
physically
has been enacted.
Yes,
over at the McIntyre household. I'm down to clown. All right, let's get to predictions. Aaron, go ahead.
So I believe within the next 6 weeks, I think we're going to see an entire American city attempted to be shut down or locked down again. I made a prediction not too long ago that we would see the mask mandate upped in certain locales. That in certain locales has proven to be true. I think the next step is going to be lockdown. So I think either Los Angeles, New York, or I believe Washington State or Michigan will lock down again because of the Delta variant or the Lambda variant.
I think your prediction will prove true. I'll be very surprised if it's Michigan.
See, that's the one that I'm least certain about.
Because Gretchen Whitmer clearly has been listening to her pollster here for the last couple of months. Todd,
you see with CRT, they're actually with a straight face saying, no, this is really a Republican thing. There's teacher strikes coming. They are trying to flip the script and call themselves the victims of what they've done to America the whole year. There's large-scale teacher strikes coming.
I would love to see teachers strike over the CRT that their teacher union favorable media says doesn't exist. I mean, that's killing independent George. I would love to see those worlds collide. I'd love it. Tim, go ahead. Your prediction.
I think we're going to see more blue hairs and liberals come out against CRT, and I'd love to tell you I already know that they are coming out against it. So it's very exciting to see people who think that they are regularly liberal looking at this and going, "Wait a second, that's actually racist." More and more people are waking up, and I think we're going to see new allies that we never thought we'd see.
We saw some of this with COVID. And so I think we may see more and more. We saw, and going back a few years, we saw some of this with Common Core, for example. We saw more of it with COVID, and it's something we've talked about on our show as well. So I think you're right on with that, Tim. My prediction is that Black Widow is going to have the worst opening for a Marvel film since Ant-Man and the Wasp. One of the 4 worst weekend box office openings for a Marvel film ever. I just think the delay in its release, that it's not purported, it's a prequel, it's not purported to do anything to advance the overall MCU narrative, and we already have shows that have kind of eclipsed it in that regard. It's about a character whose story arc is completed, and she's dead, and then you still have some COVID resistance with attending movies in the theater. I think it'll have a monster opening for this year, but not by MCU standards. Tim, great to see you as always, man. Thanks for joining us. Take care, all right?
Thanks for having me.
You bet. We'll come back. It'll be Feedback Friday when we do. Stay tuned.